My son is too independent, and it's unfair for my daughters, so I demanded he transfer from his fancy school to my local one, give up spending his dad's money, and do my housework to earn essentials, babysit my kids, and stay under my supervision, but he refused, so I contacted his school to kick him out, and it ruined my life. I have 3 kids. My son is 17 and my daughters are 12 and 9. I share custody with my ex-husband. He lives in the city and I live about 2 hours away in a smaller town. My son has lived with his dad for the last few years because he goes to a private boarding school on a big scholarship. My daughters live with me full-time. The arrangement made sense when it started. My ex has a higher income and the school is close to his work, so logistically it worked better. Plus at the time my son was really focused on academics and extracurriculars, and the school had the right programs for that. He visits during holidays and the occasional long weekend, but his life is mostly centered around the city now. The issue is, over time, the gap between his life and my daughter's lives has gotten pretty noticeable. He's gone on overseas debate trips, gets invited to all these formal events, wears tailored uniforms, and recently got a car from his dad. Meanwhile, my girls go to a normal local school, and we don't have the same kind of resources. I'm not poor, but I work full-time, and things are tight, especially raising 2 on my own. My ex pays child support, but it mostly goes into the essentials. We don't live lavishly. Whenever my son visits, the house dynamic shifts. He'll bring expensive gadgets, talk about his trips, and the girls pick up on it immediately. They've started asking why he gets to do all these things they don't, why he doesn't have chores when he's here, why he gets treated differently. I've tried to explain that he's on a scholarship and has his own commitments, but it's hard to justify when they see him basically living an entirely separate life. This past holiday, he came to stay for 3 weeks. I'd been stewing on this for a while, and I decided to bring it up properly. My view is that if he's going to be part of this household, it has to be fair. He's almost an adult, and while I understand he's worked hard, I also don't think it's healthy for my daughters to constantly feel like they're living in his shadow. It's starting to affect their confidence. So, I sat him down and explained what I called my fairness plan. Basically, I told him that for his final year of school, I wanted him to transfer to the local public high school here. It's not bad academically, and it would allow him to be more present in this family. I also told him that when he's at my house, he needs to stick to the basics. No flashy clothes, no luxury items around his sisters, no acting like a guest. He'd need to do regular chores, babysit occasionally when I work late, and contribute to the household like everyone else. I didn't think it was unreasonable. He's part of this family, and to me, part of being a family is pulling your weight and not flaunting advantages. I also think it's better for his sisters to see everyone on the same playing field. I thought this could actually ground him a bit. He started to act very independent, which isn't bad, but it's like he sees himself as separate from us now. He basically laughed. He said transferring was out of the question, that his scholarship and extracurriculars depend on that school, and that he's not going to give up what he's built just because his sisters feel insecure. He also made some comment about how it's not his fault that I stayed in the small town. That honestly stung. I raised him here for most of his life. I didn't like his tone at all. It felt arrogant. After that conversation, I started thinking seriously about what options I had. I know the school depends on accurate financial records and guardianship documentation for his scholarship. I also know that the school takes family situations seriously because they're very strict about parental involvement. So, I called the school under the pretense of being concerned about his financial support situation. I told them that I wasn't sure his dad could keep up the same level of support, that the living situation had changed, and that I wanted to make sure everything was properly documented. I phrased it like I was just making sure things were above board. I didn't outright say anything false, but I knew the kind of review that would trigger. And it worked. A few weeks later, I got an email from their administration saying they had initiated a financial reassessment and a guardianship review. Basically, they paused his extracurricular eligibility until they verify everything. I knew that would shake things up. I thought maybe it would make him reconsider, or at least humble him a bit. Well, it did not go that way. His dad found out almost immediately because the school contacted him for more documents. He showed up at my house the next day, furious. He brought a folder with all the paperwork to prove everything was fine, but he made it clear he knew I'd triggered the review. My son was with him, and the look he gave me was cold. He called me a snake. He said I was trying to ruin everything he worked for. I told him I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I was trying to make things fair, but he wasn't listening. Now my ex is threatening legal action if I interfere again, and my son is barely speaking to me. My daughters are confused because they don't know the full story. From their perspective, their brother is suddenly angry at me, and my ex is coming around more than usual. I haven't told them about the call because I don't think they'd understand it in the right context. I posted here because I genuinely don't think what I asked was outrageous. Eita? Update 1. A lot has happened since I posted. I didn't expect so many people to react so strongly, and I definitely didn't expect the situation to blow up the way it did. Things escalated outside the house and into the community pretty fast, and I think that's where this started to spiral. After the whole situation with the school and my ex storming over, my son basically went radio silent with me. He blocked me on everything except email, and even then only responds with short, dry messages if it's absolutely necessary. When he came back for a weekend, he didn't stay here. He stayed with a friend in town. My daughters were upset about it, but also confused because they don't fully understand what's going on between us. In the meantime, I was trying to figure out what my next step was. I didn't want him thinking he could just shrug everything off and keep living like we didn't exist. So, I decided to get more involved locally. I joined the PTA at the local public high school. Honestly, I thought it made sense because that's the school my daughters will be at for years, and I wanted to get more involved anyway. But part of me also thought that if my son saw that I was serious about this, he might realize that transferring wasn't just a suggestion. I wanted to lay groundwork. I started mentioning casually to some other parents that my son might be coming back to the local school soon. I didn't outright lie, but I definitely implied that there were issues at his boarding school and that we were weighing options. People love to gossip in small towns, and it spread faster than I expected. There's a small community news blog that reports on local school board meetings, sports events, honor roll lists, that kind of thing. They picked up on the rumors and ran a short post about a local star student considering transferring back for his senior year. It wasn't technically about him by name, but it was obvious. My son's name isn't common, and everyone knows he's the one at that prestigious boarding school. By the time I found out about the post, people were already commenting things like, "It's good he's coming back down to earth," and "About time one of them came home." His school got wind of it too. Apparently one of the debate coaches saw it and asked him directly about it. He was furious. From what my ex told me later, he put 2 and 2 together pretty quickly, that the rumors started here and assumed I was behind them. He confronted me over email saying I was dragging his name through town. That's not how I saw it. I wasn't dragging his name anywhere. I was making plans for what I thought was fair, but apparently he took it very personally, and so did some people at his school. His debate coach pulled him out of a couple of competitions temporarily because they didn't want any distraction during the scholarship investigation. Meanwhile, the PTA meeting started to get more heated. There's always been this tension in town between parents whose kids go to private schools in the city and those who keep their kids here. Some people resent the ones who leave, and others quietly look down on the local school. It's a thing that's been simmering for years. At one of the meetings, the topic of student retention came up, and parents started debating about how to keep kids from transferring out. I made the mistake of speaking up. I used my son as an example, not by name, but it was obvious. I said something about how some kids get swept up in the fancy opportunities and forget where they came from, and how it would be better for families and communities if more of them stayed local. It got a lot of nods in the room, and honestly, at the time, I felt like I was making a good point. What I didn't know was that someone recorded the meeting. A few parents shared the clip on Facebook afterward, and it made its way around town. A few lines I said got repeated over and over, and suddenly it wasn't a discussion, it was gossip fodder. People started calling my son the prince or the runaway in a half-joking, half-resentful way. He's not even here most of the time, but he became a topic of town chatter overnight. The recording eventually reached him through a mutual friend. That was the breaking point. He called my ex, furious. My ex called me saying I'd humiliated him publicly. I didn't see it that way at all. I didn't say anything I didn't believe, and I didn't use his name. But in a small town, people connect dots fast. At the same time, his school started sending me notices about inconsistencies in the guardianship and funding information they received during their audit. The timing couldn't have been worse because his university recommendation letters were supposed to be finalized that month. Instead, they got delayed while they verified everything I'd claimed. My ex had to send in a whole stack of paperwork to clean it up. I tried to explain to some of the other PTA parents that I was just trying to get him to be part of the community again, but the mood shifted fast. People who had nodded along in the meeting started to back away. One mom told me bluntly that I'd turned my son into a talking point to score PTA points. A few others stopped acknowledging me altogether. The worst part was the look on my daughters' faces when they came home from school one afternoon and repeated something they'd heard from other kids. Some students had apparently been making jokes about their brother getting knocked down a peg. They didn't fully understand it, but they knew it wasn't kind. I realized that the gossip had reached them too. I thought joining the PTA would give me some control over the narrative. Instead, it made everything louder. My son standing at his school took a hit. My reputation in town shifted from involved mom to jealous troublemaker, and my daughters got dragged into something they didn't need to be part of. I still think my reasoning about fairness wasn't wrong, but I can admit I underestimated how fast things could get out of hand. Update 2. I didn't expect my private issues to bleed into my job, but that's exactly what happened. After the PTA recording spread through town, it somehow ended up being shared in my office group chat. I work for a mid-size insurance company. A lot of the employees are parents, and quite a few have kids in the same school district as my daughters. One of the newer hires is actually on the PTA committee. She didn't say anything directly to me, but I noticed the shift in tone almost immediately. People who normally chatted with me about their weekends suddenly went quiet when I walked into the break room. My supervisor called me in not long after and told me some of the parents were concerned that my personal situation was becoming a distraction. He said it politely, but the message was clear. He mentioned the recording had circulated beyond just parents and was now a topic of discussion in other departments. I was told to be mindful of how I conduct myself publicly since I represent the company. It wasn't an official warning, but it was a warning. At the same time, my ex decided this was the perfect moment to push for changes in custody. He filed for mediation, claiming the situation with our son proved I couldn't handle shared decisions effectively. He wanted full control over educational decisions, and most financial responsibilities shifted officially to him. I didn't take that lying down. During the mediation sessions, I argued that my son had been neglecting his siblings and that if he stayed with me during breaks, he should be required to help more. I asked for a clause that would make him responsible for certain household duties and regular childcare. I thought it was fair since he's part of this family. The mediator looked at me like I'd grown a second head. She asked if I understood that he's a minor, not a co-parent. My lawyer pulled me aside afterward and told me privately that what I was pushing for would make me look controlling and unreasonable in front of the judge. I didn't back down because I didn't see why I should. If he was living under my roof, he should follow my structure. I wasn't demanding anything outrageous. Plenty of kids babysit their younger siblings, but the reaction in that room made it clear that nobody else saw it that way. My ex, of course, used it to his advantage, acting calm and measured while I came off as difficult. Meanwhile, my son made his own move. I didn't know about it until someone at work forwarded me a link. He spoke at a scholarship committee hearing to address the financial irregularities that had been flagged when I contacted his school. He laid out the entire situation, including the fact that the audit was triggered by my call. He framed it as me lying to undermine him. The committee recorded the hearing, and a clip of his speech was posted on the school's social media page as part of their transparency policy. Parents from the local school shared it around, and it reached my office again. This time, the comments were less subtle. I overheard someone near the printer saying it was messed up to tank your own kid's scholarship just to make a point. Another coworker who used to sit with me at lunch started avoiding me altogether. I noticed one of the managers I'd been friendly with quietly untagged themselves from old PTA event photos I was in. Around that same period, I was in the running for a promotion to team lead. It wasn't guaranteed, but I was one of the 2 people being seriously considered. A week after the scholarship hearing clip made the rounds, my supervisor told me they were going with the other candidate because they needed someone without external distractions. I'd never had performance issues before. It was obvious what had shifted. At home, things got more complicated. My daughter started picking up phrases they'd heard from other kids. They called their brother the prince at dinner one night in this half-joking tone they didn't fully understand. I told them to stop, but it was clear the town gossip had reached them. Kids talk, parents talk, and everything spreads fast in a small community. The custody mediation didn't end the way I expected either. My ex didn't get full custody, but he did get increased decision-making authority over schooling and extracurriculars. The mediator wrote that I had demonstrated difficulty maintaining appropriate boundaries regarding educational matters. My lawyer told me it was a diplomatic way of saying I'd shot myself in the foot. I tried to regroup at work by keeping my head down and focusing on my tasks, but the damage was already done. The PTA clip and the scholarship speech turned me into a running topic. I noticed people watching me when I walked through the office, not in a curious way, but in that look people give when they've already decided what kind of person you are. My son, meanwhile, leaned fully into his position at the school. Update 3. My parents hosted a big family reunion a few weekends ago. It's something they do every couple of years, and because my dad's health has been shaky, this one was a bit more emotional for everyone. Relatives flew in from different parts of the country. My son had just gotten his university acceptance letter, and my ex's side was planning to make a bit of a moment out of it at the reunion. When I arrived, it felt like walking into a party that was already in full swing without me. My son was surrounded by relatives, everyone hugging him, telling him how proud they were. My ex's wife was there too, standing beside him like she belonged. It stung seeing her slotting into family conversations so easily, while I felt like a guest at my own parents' event. I'd been sitting on a lot of frustration, and I thought maybe if I addressed it head-on, it would make people understand where I was coming from. So when it came time for speeches, I decided to say something. I wasn't planning a big scene, at least not in my head. I just wanted to acknowledge the situation. I ended up giving a speech about fairness between households. I talked about how hard it's been raising the girls without the same opportunities, how there's one house where everything seems to happen, the trips, the scholarships, the celebrations, and then there's mine, where I'm just expected to keep everything running. I said I didn't want there to be two families under the same last name, one royal, one peasant. The room went dead quiet. A few relatives looked shocked, some uncomfortable. My parents didn't say a word. My son didn't respond at all, but his face hardened. Someone recorded it on their phone, and by the time I got home, the clip was already circulating in the extended family group chat. Some relatives were sympathetic, saying they understood what I meant. Others said I was jealous and bitter and had embarrassed him in front of everyone. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. A week later, his school hosted a scholarship gala. It's this formal event where donors, alumni, and top students gather. He was receiving recognition, and my ex's side was attending. I hadn't been formally invited, but since I'm his parent, I figured I had a right to be there. From the moment I arrived, it was clear they weren't happy about it. At check-in, one of the staff members politely told me my name wasn't on the guest list. I explained who I was, and after a lot of whispering between staff, they eventually let me through. It was awkward. People stared. I tried to find a seat near the front with the family, but they were already full. My ex's wife had a seat beside my son, and I ended up toward the back. That alone set me off a little. I sat through a bunch of speeches, stewing quietly, until one of the administrators approached me and asked to have a quick word. We stepped outside, and she basically told me that due to previous interference with the school's administrative process, I was flagged as a restricted guest, meaning I wasn't supposed to interact with staff or students during official events. I was humiliated. I told her I was his mother and I had every right to be there. She stayed calm but firm and said I could stay as long as I didn't cause disruptions. When the headmaster went up to speak, he mentioned my son's achievements. He was called on stage, and people started clapping. I don't know what came over me, but when he started talking about his support system and thanked his father and everyone who believed in him, I stood up. I didn't yell or anything like that, but I tried to walk closer to the stage, saying something about how I was part of that support too. Security intercepted me. In front of a room full of donors, teachers, students, and family members, I was escorted out. It wasn't violent, just firm and public. I could hear murmuring behind me as I walked through the doors. Later that night, I saw a recording of his speech. After I was removed, he continued, and at the end he said, "I want to thank the people who supported me, not the ones who tried to hold me back." That line spread fast. It was shared in the town's parent group chats. Some co-workers brought it up, and my daughters watched it live on the school's page. Since then, things at home have shifted again. My daughters have started asking uncomfortable questions. They want to know why I keep picking fights with him, why people at school are talking about their brother like he's some hero who rose above a difficult parent. They used to accept my version of events without thinking. Now they seem unsure. Final update. The custody agreement expired when he turned 18 and he officially moved out. It happened quietly. No blowout, no dramatic confrontation. He just didn't come back after the summer break. My ex picked him up, and that was it. I thought he'd at least stop by to get a few things, but he had already arranged to have what he wanted taken earlier. Anything left was boxed up by me and sent over. He's living in a dorm now, fully covered by scholarships and whatever my ex is contributing. I found out through my youngest that he listed his stepmother as his emergency contact for university. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. My daughters also decided to spend most of the summer with their dad. Originally, it was meant to be 2 weeks. Then they asked to extend it. I didn't want to seem petty, so I agreed, thinking they'd eventually get bored. They didn't. They stayed the whole time and barely called. When the school year started again, they were still distant. They talk about their brother like he's this bigger-than-life figure now. Before they'd tease him. Now it's all admiration. They bring up his school events, his new friends, his internships, like he's some celebrity. It's clear the shift isn't just about him being away. They've started questioning the things I said about him before, especially after the gala incident got around. I was invited to his high school graduation, but not as part of his main group. I sat several rows behind his dad, his stepmother, and her parents. They were the ones in all the photos. When his name was called, everyone around them stood and cheered. I clapped too, but it felt like I was watching someone else's kid. After the ceremony, he took pictures with friends, teachers, and his dad's family. I stood off to the side for a while, but there was no moment between us. Eventually, I just left. My daughters still have contact with him, which I'm glad for. They video call occasionally. I hear them laughing through their doors. I've stopped trying to insert myself into those conversations. It only made them clam up before. I've had a lot of time to think, especially with how quiet everything's gotten. I don't regret wanting fairness between my kids. That part hasn't changed. But the way I went about it, the interference with his school, the public PTA stunt, the gala, all of that blew up so badly, I ended up pushing everyone further apart. I didn't get a fairer household, I got an empty one.